print current value of x. Now when I will execute this, notice that current value is being printed out like unlimited amount of time, and it will continue to run until I delete this cell. Now let's see what actually happened here. First, I created a variable and then I used while keyword with the condition if, while x is less than 6 and the value of x is 0, keep printing or keep executing the code that I've given. Now, if I will add another line of code, which will be x equals to x plus 1, notice what will happen. Here, the while loop eventually came to an end. So let's see what actually happened here. First, I use the while keyword with the condition if x will be less than 6, then execute this code. And the value of x is 0. But notice after this, which means that every time the code or the while loop will run, the value of x will increase by 1. So in short, the value of x will keep increasing until it reaches 6. But it won't print 6 because then the condition will be false and we don't want that to happen. Now let's add else statement here. Else colon print the value of x is not less than 6. Now let's run the cell and see the result. So as you can see that we have a new line in the output saying that x is not less than 6, which means that the while loop condition was true earlier, but now when it was about to reach 6, the else statement was executed because again in the while loop condition I have given the condition as x is less than 6. While x is less than 6, do this. So basically, when the condition was false, the while condition that I've given here was false, the else statement was executed. If you still have some doubts, you can go and ask them in the comment section and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Now let's talk about break, continue and pass statements, which will add extra functionality for various use cases. So break function will basically break out of a loop. Continue statement will go to the top of the current loop, and finally the pass statement basically does nothing. Now let's see all of them in action. Let's say if I have a list of 5 elements, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now I will use for loop and say for element and x. Now if I will run this code, oh no, wait, let's leave a comment here first. Now let's try running the loop. As you can see, we have an error which is saying that the comment is not enough to fill this emptiness. Or to be more clear, the error is saying that we need to have something in this loop. Basically you need to have something here other than a comment. So in this type of situation, you can tell Python to do nothing by saying pass. Now let's rerun the cell and see the output. And we have no output as expected. Because before Python was expecting something in the loop, and by saying pass, we have said that we don't want to pass in something or we don't need an output yet. This will be useful when you will create your own functions in Python, but in future. Now let's talk about continue statement. This statement will basically tell Python to go back to the closest and closing loop. Let's see an example of it here. Let's say I have a string here and the value is Tommy. And now if I will say for each letter in string, print out those letter individually. So if you remember from my earlier for loop video, this is a placeholder here which basically represents individual elements inside of this string. Now if I will run this, as you can see that each character or element inside of the string is being printed out individually. But now if I will say if the letter equals to O, then continue. Now let's run the cell and see that the O is missing here. Now let me explain what is happening. For each letter, or you can say whatever you want for the placeholder, but in this case I'm saying letter to represent individual elements inside of the string. If that letter equals to O, then continue. And notice that the print function is under the loop, not under the if statement. What this is saying is that during the iteration of while loop, when it will be iterating through the string, if that later during the iteration or looping you came to O, then continue and go back to the loop. I hope you have understood what I mean by this. But still, if you haven't, then don't worry, this isn't something that you'll be writing in your Python beginner code. But still, if you have question or doubt, please go to the comment section and ask them there. Now let's finally talk about break. Break statement basically breaks the current loop that is currently being executed. Let's see an example of it here. If I were to come here and say, instead of continue, break, notice the results. As you can see that we have nothing after the element. Now this whole code basically means that during the loop, if that letter or element that you came upon or during the iteration over the object, you see a element which is O, then break the loop. Meaning it won't do anything after this break statement will be executed. I hope this all is clear to you about break, but still let me explain a bit more. Let's say I have a variable called n which will equal to 0. Now if I will use while loop here and say if n is less than 6, print n, while incrementing it by 1. Now notice the output. As you can see that we have all the numbers except 6, which is basically what had to happen, because if the value of n would increment up to 6, then the while loop will stop, because the condition here I have given while n will be less than 6, then do this, but when it will be about to or is equal to 6, then stop. Again the condition that I have given, while n is less than 6, do this, but as soon as it will be about to equal to 6, stop, just don't do anything else. Now let's say if I want to break this loop, as soon as the value of n is incremented to 3, I can come over here and say if n will be less than 3, then break the loop. Now let's execute this and see the result. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Let me define the condition. If n will be greater than 3, then break. Okay, as you can see that we have all the numbers starting from 0 up to 3, but not after 3. This means that the break statement was executed because the value of n was about to be greater than 3. Okay, now I hope this all is clear to you. So that's it for this video. If you have any doubts or question, feel free to ask them in the comment section.